The Nikon ZR is easily one of the most interesting camera released this year. It is a pretty big shift for Nikon. It is the first Nikon camera with the red logo on it, and Nikon marketed it as a cinema camera. If you look at the design, the features, workflow of this Nikon ZR, you can really see that it is a very video-focused camera. So for me, one thing that I'm most interested in is whether this Nikon ZR can be a good hybrid camera or not. Means you're shooting both photo and video at the same time using this camera. I'm now at the Auckland waterfront. I'm going to shoot for a local dragon boat club today. They have a race day today, and I'll be shooting both photos and videos using the Nikon ZR. So usually I would try to avoid shooting both photos and videos at the same job. I'll tell my wedding clients or event photography clients to either pick video or photo, as I don't really want to shoot both at the same time. But today I think it'll be a good chance for me to test out the ZR and see whether it can keep up when I have to quickly switch between photos and videos in a real-world situation with limited time. So I better hurry up because the race is starting very soon, and I will show you my thoughts and also some of the photo and videos after this shoot.
Downtown, foot pushed on the pedal, move through songs we played together, be like we're on holiday. I got a feeling it's a good day. We're driving downtown, foot pushed on the pedal, move to songs we played together, feel like we're on holiday. I got a feeling it's a good day. Downtown, foot pushed on the pedal, move to songs we played together, feel like we're on holiday. I got a feeling it's a good day. Back to the days, down memory lane, back to the times when our life was a breeze. Feel the freedom again, my mind was at ease. The sky was so blue when we rolled down the street. So hey, I just wanna put your vibe, I just wanna put your vibe. Hey, I just want a good time, good time. We're driving downtown, foot pushed on the pedal, move to songs we...
Okay, before I share my thoughts about the Nikon ZR, let me give you a bit of context about the event I covered. So it was a race day for the local Dragon Boat Association. Lots of teams, around a dozen races, all squeezed into 3 hours. I was shooting completely on my own, covering both photos and videos, so things were moving fast the whole time. I started shooting from the shore, then jumped onto the safety boat halfway through to capture some shots from the water. I only brought 3 lenses: Nikon Z 35mm f1.8s, Nikon Z 100-400mm, and also my old Nikon AIS 50mm f1.2 manual focus lens. The biggest challenge of the day was the pace. Each race lasts only about a minute, and even though 1 minute sounds long, I usually had just a 10 to 20 second window when the angle and distance were ideal. And because I needed both photos and video, that tiny window had to be split in half. And there were also lots of things happening on the shore at the same time, so I need to keep an eye on that and react immediately if needed. My goal was to capture a good variety of video clips so I can put together a short video for the organizer. But I also didn't want my photos to look like video frame grabs. So I played around with different techniques, including trying to shoot at very fast and also very slow shutter speed. I'm telling you all this because it was genuinely challenging. My brain kept switching between photo mode and video mode, and if I missed something, that moment was gone forever. Now, the ZR has a lot fewer buttons than a typical Nikon camera. Nikon has redesigned the user interface So the camera relies a lot more on the big 4-inch touchscreen. And there are also some other smart changes. For example, a short press of the menu button would bring up the quick menu, and a long press would bring up the full menu. I actually discovered that by accident, so that makes me wonder how many Z R owners actually know about this. The camera uses a button to power on or power off the camera instead of the usual switch. I personally prefer the switch because I can know exactly whether the camera is on or off without even looking at the camera. But one thing I do really like is that when you press the power button, the Z R starts up almost instantly. The startup time is really fast. And the camera is just very responsive overall. From going into the camera menu, zoom in or zoom out, everything responds pretty much instantly. This is something the specs don't tell you, but it makes the camera feel so good when you're actually using it. And because of these changes, the camera looks very clean. It looks more like a smart device than a traditional professional camera. And I think Nikon is aiming the Z R at two different groups. The first group is professional filmmakers who already shoot on the big red camera and want a compact B or C cam. And then the young creators coming from smartphones who want something more powerful with a bigger sensor but not intimidating. I myself don't really belong to either groups. So the real question is, does the Z R work for me as a hybrid camera? I set up two different user modes before the race. U1 for candid single shot photo and 4K 60 video. And then U2 for burst photos and 4K 120 video for me to capture the racing. So with these two different user modes and the photo video switch, I could jump between different setups quickly. For example, when I capture a race, I will switch to video mode and start shooting video, and then I will switch to photo mid-race or the other way around. Now, would I like to have more buttons and dials on the Z R? Absolutely. For example, if there's an exposure mode dial, that will make it a lot easier and quicker for me to switch between different exposure mode, as I don't have to go into any of the menus. But even though this was my first fast-paced event with the Z R, it was still manageable. The Z R also doesn't have an electronic viewfinder, which could be a deal breaker for some. The event was a bright sunny day, so having an electronic viewfinder would have been helpful. But with the screen's brightness turned up, the Z R screen was still very usable under the bright sunlight. It's one of the brightest screens I've used. Two of the cameras I use a lot recently are the Lumix S9 and the Fujifilm X-M5. They both don't have EVFs, so I'm quite used to shooting without an EVF. And compared to the usual 3-inch screen on most cameras, the Z R's 4-inch screen is a big upgrade. And now after shooting with the Z R for about 2 weeks, when I go back to my X-M5 or the S9, the screens on those cameras feel tiny. The large screen also helps when I want to review the photo or video I shot on the Z R. It's just much easier to check focus and details. Before using the camera, I wasn't happy about not having a full-size HDMI port, but now after actually using the camera, it bothered me a lot less. It's because the 4-inch screen is really big and bright enough. And with the camera support internal RAW recording, you also don't really need an external recorder anyway. Now, speaking of internal RAW video recording, the Z R can record 3 different internal RAW formats. Nikon's own NRAW, Red's R3D NE. NE stands for Nikon X-Speed. X-Speed is the name of the Nikon camera processor, so this R3D NE is a special version of the Red RAW format that is optimized for Nikon's processor. And ProRes RAW HQ, it wasn't that long ago RAW video record to an external recorder was a big feature, but now you can choose between 3 different RAW formats in a small, relatively affordable camera. I think that is pretty crazy, and it really shows you how fast things advance. The Z R can record RAW video up to 6K 60p. You can also shoot 4K RAW video, but there are compromises. Full frame 4K raw video looks line skipped or something similar. Or you can choose 1.5 times crop, which gives you sharp 4K raw video because it's just directly recording from the center part of the 6K sensor. Now, if you have never shot raw video before, let me remind you, while raw video gives you a lot of flexibility when you're editing the file, there are also some downsides. It's mainly the file size and workflow. For example, with my 512GB CF Express card, it can only hold around 18 minutes of 6K 60 and RAW or R3D RAW, or 13 minutes of 6K 30 ProRes RAW HQ. And when you're editing the video, there are some extra steps that you have to do, like sharpening or noise reduction. So for me, apart from doing some raw video file testing, I shot almost every video in 10-bit MOV format. The file size and the workflow are just much more manageable. Now the big question everyone has been asking, are the 10-bit analog MOV files soft? Well, I tested this right away. Here are two 4K videos that were shot with almost identical settings, but one in SDR and one in analog. So yes, the analog file is a bit softer, but the difference is quite small. I was also a bit curious and I compared the file size, and I noticed when I shot an identical scene in 4K 60, the SDR and the HLG files are pretty much the same size, but the size of the analog file is about 1/3 the size. There's a huge difference in the file size. I repeated the test and shooting another scene, and the results were pretty much the same. I did one more test, shooting 5.4K 60, still in MOV format. The analog file is also smaller, but this time the difference isn't quite as big, only about 1/3 smaller. The difference in file size might explain the difference in sharpness, but why the analog files are smaller? Is it a bug? Or is there some technical reasons or limitations? I have no idea. But if you want the most detailed video file that can capture high dynamic range but don't want to shoot in RAW format, then you can shoot in 10-bit HLG. The file size is the same as SDR output. It is pretty sharp and it still captures high dynamic range. You just need to adjust your editing workflow. Now for my own work, I shot the entire Dragon Ball event in 10-bit analog MOV format, especially when pretty much everything was moving. Dragon Balls, the teams, and I myself were moving pretty much constantly. You have motion blur and other issues, so the small difference in sharpness is probably not noticeable. And quite often, I didn't even get the time to set the optimal setting. For example, my exposure were actually quite off for some clips, but with analog, it was quite easy to fix in editing. Some of the video clips do look quite soft, but that's because those were shot with my AIS 50mm f1.2 lens, which is quite soft, especially when shooting at wide open. The lens choice made a much bigger impact to the sharpness than the picture profile. I also shot a lot of 4K 120p MOV video. Like the Z6 4K 120p video has an APS-C crop, which actually helped me because I need more reach. The 4K 120 video looks great, very detailed and beautiful, but I do wish the 4K 120 crop is smaller. The Panasonic Lumix S1 II, which presumably is using the same sensor, has a much smaller 1.24 times crop. The weekend before, I went to the Auckland Zoo with the Z R and I went to the kiwi enclosure there. It's extremely dark inside. My eyes could barely see anything. I cranked the ISO to 51,200 and the Z R pretty much turned into a night vision camera. I still couldn't find any kiwis. They hide way too well, but at least I can see the place very well. For image stabilization, the Z R has IBIS, so you get stabilization with any lens. For video, the image stabilization is quite good. I thought about bringing my gimbal since I knew I'll be walking around a lot, but in the end I left the gimbal at home as I need to switch between photo and video mode a lot, so it's much easier without the gimbal. So even when I was shooting from the safety boat with a telephoto lens, the footage was still pretty smooth. It's not Panasonic level, but very usable. For photos, the Z R is using the same sensor and processor as the Z6 III, so I knew the photo quality would be good. But the Z R only has electronic shutter, so I was a bit worried about that. Turns out it wasn't an issue. Rolling shutter is very minimal and hasn't affected any of my real-world photos. But there are a couple of things to note though. If you shoot with fast shutter speed, you may get bending with certain lights. And if you use camera flash often, the camera's sync speed is only 1/60th second, which is quite slow compared to mechanical shutter cameras. None of these affect me, but I thought it's worth mentioning. With the small body and no active cooling, I thought the camera may overheat, especially that day the temperature was almost 30 degrees Celsius and it was sunny with the camera in direct sunlight. And I was shooting almost non-stop, but the Z R never overheated or even gave me a warning. I have no idea how Nikon managed to do that, but it impressed me. So overall, as a hybrid camera, the Z R handled this fast-paced event much better than I expected. I'm really happy with the photos and videos I captured, especially considering I was still learning the camera as I went. That said, the Z R is not a perfect camera. There are a few things I love to see either by firmware update or the next version. First, dual card video recording. Redundancy is very important for professional work. CF Express cards are reliable, but not being able to record to 2 cards makes me nervous. This is something I hope Nikon adds across their cameras. Next, I want to have the option to record video to USB drives. With the raw video being so huge, it will be much more cost effective to record to an external SSD USB drive instead of having to buy multiple terabytes of CF Express cards. And I also love to have open gate video recording. Open gate means recording video using the full width and also full height of the sensor. So the recorded video is taller than the typical 16:9 output format. These days, more and more projects need both horizontal and vertical video output. And open gate video makes that much easier. And if we can record in open gate format, that will make it a lot easier. So I've created a horizontal video for the organizers, but ideally, they will also want to have the vertical video for social media. I would be able to do that if I could record open gate video, as that allows me to crop the video to different output aspect ratio easily. Unfortunately, this is not possible with the Z R. And while you can use anamorphic lenses on the Z R, there's no anamorphic discrete preview, and there's also no anamorphic optimized IBIS. A firmware update for anamorphic discrete preview would be amazing, especially with that big 4-inch screen. Now, those features aside, the Z R really is as good as I hoped for. A small, affordable, entry-level cine camera that also works well for photos. And I think this is just the very beginning of Nikon's serious steps into filmmaking. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more cinema-focused Nikon cameras in the next year or two. Nikon calls the Z R a cinema camera, and it is a very nice entry-level cinema camera. But the Z R is really a lot more than that. It is a really nice hybrid camera for people that needs to shoot both video and photos. And if you are a pure photographer, pairing the Z R with one of the smaller prime lens, and it is a very compact full frame setup. Not pocketable, but you can fit it into any small camera bag easily. The big 4-inch screen and simple controls actually makes the Z R a great everyday photo camera or travel photo camera too, as long as you are okay with the limitations of having no mechanical shutter. So what do you think about the Nikon Z R? Do you like the direction Nikon is going with video? Let me know your thoughts, I love to hear them.